Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos, and in this video we are going to talk about Evoker talents, and also just the Evoker class in general, how it works and stuff. Sorry this video is a little bit late, I was out of town, and then came back to town, contracted COVID, now all good, mostly, and so hopefully we'll have videos landing on this channel with a rapid cadence again. You know, hopefully every day actually for a couple weeks, we'll see how it goes. Anyways, Evoker, a lot of people still are still aren't 100% sure on how the Drakthir Evoker thing works. They are hard locked to each other. If you're a Drakthir, you're also an Evoker, and if you're an Evoker, you're also a Drakthir. There's currently no way to play a Drakthir Warrior, Drakthir Rogue, or anything like that, or a Night Elf Evoker, anything like that. So functionally, you can think of the Drakthir racials, at least until they change this rule, as being part of the Evoker kit as well. But it's worth going over which of these are racials so that if they ever do change that, you'll know which ones are coming with Evoker and which ones are staying. So first of all, let's see, you've got the Chosen Identity and Visage effects, which let you just switch between Drakthir and this Visage thing out of combat if you want. You can either press the Visage button to do so, or whether if you have Chosen Identity active, it will default you to being your Visage out of combat. Currently, when you are in your Visage, instead of being in your dragon form, you do increase out-of-combat health regen for the group. So technically, it's a little bit better to have this turned on, have Chosen Identity turned on, and stay in your Visage form whenever you are out of combat. But probably not a big enough deal if you actually do prefer being in Drakthir form the whole time. I will actually, for the just because I can't let myself leave this out of combat out of combat health regen increase on the table. I will always have my human form on outside of combat. Whenever you do enter combat, though, it does immediately turn you into your Drakthir. You've also got Glide as a racial. Glide it's not quite Demon Hunter because you don't have double jump, but it is the same glide effect. So it's just single jump glide instead of double jump glide. You have Soar, which is basically dragon riding, dragon flying. If you've seen what that looks like, you just hop up into the air and you can accelerate a little bit, go up, and then you gain speed by going down, and you lose speed by going up, and eventually you'll run out of speed and distance, but you can go a really long way and you can go really fast with it as well. Unlike dragon riding, this works in the old world as well. It is on a 5-minute cooldown that starts whenever you land after you're done soaring. So really cool, actually. Really, really cool thing that Evokers get. You have Tail Swipe and Wing Buffet, which are both on a 1.5-minute cooldown, and you can use both of them, and they're both CC effects. Wing Buffet is a frontal that knocks back, and Tail Swipe is an AoE knock up. So two pretty powerful effects that will be strong at M+, for sure, and PvP as well, and definitely something where if they ever make non-Evoker Drakthir, those are going to be potent racials for PvP and M+. The other racial passive here is a flat mastery increase. We'll go over, actually, let's just talk about what the masteries for the two Drakthir specs are right now as well. The Devastation mastery, which is the DPS spec, is Giant Killer, increasing the damage of your spells based on current health of your target. Higher health targets take more damage. So this is something that is generally going to be worse than it sims for progression rating, because generally most progression raid fights, you rather have damage at the end of the fight rather than at the start of the fight. There are some exceptions where damage at the start is fine, and especially for fights where if you're just potting and lusting on pull, Mastery Giant Killer will actually be even somewhat better potentially than it would look there, but ultimately it's just a question of how much is the sim, and then you really wouldn't want to use it on a fight where, like, if you're ever stopping damage and then you're waiting to make a good push and then blasting damage after that, that's going to be a spot where you really want to be a low mastery build for an Evoker, probably. And then the Preservation mastery is kind of the opposite. It's your healing is increased while to allies whose health is lower than your own, whose health percentage is lower than your own. So this really increases the value of, like, Leech on Preservation. Leech is already a good stat for healers, but especially good for Preservation Evokers that will therefore have this active more of the time. I think that generally this is probably going to be a pretty good healing mastery, although, like all healer masteries, it doesn't increase your damage. Okay, there's also this Discerning Eye thing, which increases perception to make it easier to track mining and herbalism nodes and get additional rare materials when gathering, so... and then finally, there's you fly 20% faster on continents you have fully explored, which I think is actually a pretty neat, pretty nifty one there. You know, Orcish and Draconic. The soaring thing, that's just for the soaring that we were talking about. And Drakthir can use axes, daggers, fist weapons, maces, staves, and swords. And you're looking for intellect as your primary stat on both Devastation and Preservation. Okay, so Evoker default abilities, just the ones that you get without talenting anything. There's not too much going on. There's Blessing of the Bronze. This is your raid buff, which reduces the cooldown of a major movement ability for all party and raid members by 15% for 1 hour. So not the most important raid cooldown. If you don't have an Evoker, like if Evoker is not good, you will not miss Blessing of the Bronze, I don't think. There's some good stuff in the talent trees, though, but that's not something there. You've also got a battle res, or not a battle res, an out-of-combat res, return. And then you have a couple of... So you have Living Flame. This you can either cast on yourself, and it heals you, or on a friendly target, and it heals them, or on an enemy, and it damages them. It is 25-yard range, which we are pretty much max range right here for Evoker. There I'm out of range, and there I'm in range. So it's definitely a shorter range than, most classes are 20 or 40 yards, so this is shorter range class overall. You have Landslide, which sends out a Path of Stone, and this root stuff for 30 seconds that it hits, but damage may cancel. You have Deep Breath, which also does this, and it's up to 50 yards movement here. When you use this, you... Actually, oh yeah, there, yeah, see? You go there and does some damage to the stuff along the way. It's a 2-minute cooldown, and you're immune to movement impairing and loss of control effects while you're flying as well. You have Disintegrate, which costs 3 essence. Essence are these little blue things you can see under my character up here. And there's what Disintegrate looks like, just a burny cone thing, or a targeted channel thing on something. And yeah, essence just slowly regenerates over time. You can see exactly what it looks like there as it recharges, and there's another one full, and that currently costs 3 essence to do. Emerald Blossom, which just throws a bulb at an ally's location, and after a couple seconds heals in there. Hover, which is kind of like a Fell Rush or a roll. If you press it while you're moving in a certain direction, you will kind of roll in that direction or Fell Rush in that direction. And then while it's active, you have a movement speed buff, and you can cast while moving. So a somewhat potent little piece of mobility effects there. And there are ways to enhance this in the talent tree as well. And then finally, there's Fire Breath, which is a Empower. So the way Empowers work is you hit the button, starts casting. If you change your mind, it just doesn't go on cooldown. And you can either have to press and hold, or you can set it to, it's either hold and release or press and tap. So either you hold and release and you press it down and then release it when you're ready to fire it, or there's press and tap where you press it and then you press it again when you're ready to fire it. And depending on how far you get in the effect, different things happen. It gets more powerful. So here, that's a full charge. And you can see in the tooltip that the full charge does more damage total, although it's actually not more DPS. It does a upfront amount of damage that's the same regardless of how much you charge it. And then if you charge it to 2 or 3, you get a longer dot, but not actually a more damaging dot. So potentially some interesting opportunity here to decide how much you want to charge this thing up. And then also there's Azure Strike here, which is just an instant cast that blasts 2 enemies for a little bit of damage. Not very much damage, though. This is just kind of like a filler type thing, right? You just press it while moving. So those are the default Evoker things. And yeah, you don't get anything else. You don't get any Devastation or Preservation stuff until you talent into them. So let's go take a look at what is in the talent trees. So the Evoker talent tree, we'll start with just the class one. Landslide you get for free by being Devastation, but you can get it if you are Preservation as well. And I think that Expunge is the reverse. Expunge is a poison dispel, 8-second cooldown. Obsidian Scales here in the middle is a cooldown, a 2.5-minute cooldown on yourself to get armor. And you're a mail wearer by default as well, so you'll get quite a bit of armor for 200% more of that. And also reducing your magic damage taken by 20%. So pretty potent against most incoming damage types. It's worth noting physical damage over time is not reduced by armor, obviously, or by magic damage taken being reduced. So bleeds and the like. Actually, all physical damage over time and bleeds are functionally the same. They're all counted in the same bucket and are not reduced by armor. So yeah, do make sure that you don't try and use this to reduce your damage taken from that. But everything else basically should be reduced by that. Here we have Disintegrate Channeling Faster. That's the blue beam thing we were talking about. Landslide cooldown reduced by 30 seconds. It can withstand 200% more damage before breaking. So some kind of PvP or maybe M+ opportunity there. Quell is here. Quell is a interrupt that lets you... it's 40-second cooldown, 4-second spell lock. Again, 25-yard range, just like the rest of the Evoker kit. And you can talent into this, obviously, if you're a healing Evoker as well. Essence Regenerating Faster is obviously very good for... I mean, it's just a strong passive for... if Essence is, if it's worth. Essence Spending is likely to be a pretty good thing for at least the Devastation Evoker build I was messing around with earlier, so I imagine these are probably worth the points. Here's Recall. This is a cool one. So when you have Recall, you get to return to where your deep breath came from. So see how you do the deep breath, right? And you leave this like bronze image, then you can just go right back to where you started. Nifty, not hugely valuable, although it's nice to get the access further down the tree. Here you can either reduce Tail Swipe or Wing Buffet's cooldown. So again, these are those racial effects that we were talking about, right? The Drakthir racial effects that you can either have the cooldowns of one or the other. There's not any requirement, anything below this point, so obviously only take this if you actually want that effect. Otherwise, that's a point it doesn't, feed into anything. Blue spells reduce target's movement speed, and Obsidian Scales cooldown reduction, or Living Flame dealing more damage and healing, which does seem pretty good. Hover increasing movement speed by more at the start of its roll. Here's Fly to an ally and heal them. And then store 20% of your effective healing up to an amount. Your next damaging Living Flame consumes all stored healing to increase its damage dealt. Kind of a cool little passive there for DPS. For DPSing if you're a healer. Cauterizing Flame. This one's a big one. 1 minute cooldown. Cauterize an ally's wounds, removing all bleed, poison, curse, and disease effects, and healing upon removing any effect. So pretty powerful. Kind of a dwarf racial that you can target either yourself or somebody else with. It is worth noting it doesn't dispel magic effects, but it does do the others. So yeah, very strong effect there for Evoker. Sleepwalk, incap an enemy for 20 seconds, causing them to sleepwalk towards you. Very cool, very potent effect there. It does have a cast time, but only a 15-second cooldown. Seems like something that will probably be nuts in PvP, maybe? I'm not sure. 20 seconds in cap while they walk towards you. Attuned to the Dream, your healing done and healing received are increased here. Emerald Blossom healing 2 additional allies, going from 3 to 5. That's that green, puddle thing I made earlier. Hover lasting longer, so again, you can increase hover. You can make hover a little bit better here. Tip the Scales is a pretty potent little effect that lets your next empowered spell cast instantly at its maximum power level. So instead of having to do this, right, you could just hit your Tip the Scales and then bang, a full force fire breath comes out. Magic damage taken reduction. Redirect your excess magic to a friendly healer for 30 minutes. When you cast an empowered spell, you restore 0.5% of their maximum mana per empower level, limit 1. Now, with the build I was playing earlier, I think this is probably going to offer healers something like 7 or 8% maybe of a mana bar, or of their mana bar per minute, which seems like a lot of extra mana. So potentially a really strong Blessing of Wisdom style buff that you can place on somebody. Here's just some flat stamina, magic damage done, obviously very good. Successfully interrupting an enemy with Quell generates 1 essence. That's actually quite a lot of, like if you think about Demon Hunters making, 10 Fury or something off of an interrupt, 1 essence is, I think, more than that. So pretty strong point potentially for M+ type situations. While above 75% health, your movement speed is increased by 10%. Fire Breath's instant damage is increased. That's, again, the channel one. A Pressing Roar. 2-minute cooldown. Let out a bone-shaking roar, increasing duration of incoming crowd control on the targets for the next 10 seconds by 50%. So kind of an interesting effect, but then you can buff it to remove 1 enraged effect from each enemy, and its cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds for each enraged dispelled. So obvious candidate for Raging Week here. Seems very good for that. Over here we have Unravel, 9-second cooldown instant, dealing a lot of damage to absorb shields. Seems like mostly a PvP thing. Leaping Flames. Fire Breath causes your next living flame to strike 1 additional target per empower level. This one was really really potent with an Evoker build I was playing earlier, so I'll just put those. Actually, I have it saved, so I don't need to worry too much about it. Deep Breath stuns enemies for 3 seconds. Very cool effect there. Hover gains an additional charge. Time Spiral. Bends time, allowing you and your allies to cast their major movement ability once in the next 10 seconds, even if it's on cooldown. Movement. Who cares? Obviously good if used well, but not a talent point you need to talent otherwise. Fly with me. This is a combination, so you fly to a target and then both of you fly somewhere else. So it's kind of slow, kind of awkward, kind of clunky, but obviously powerful. Healing yourself with Living Flame reduces the cast time of your next Living Flame. The Flames of Life surround you for 8 seconds, healing you over 14 seconds for 100% of damage taken. So this is really good, really nice button that you can just press on yourself for in heavy incoming damage moments. This is going to give you a lot of self-healing back, but it does take 14 seconds to heal you, so... and it's a buff that's only on you for 8 seconds, so it's of limited power. It's not going to out-heal incoming damage or anything like that, but it might potentially give you a full health bar's worth of healing in certain heavy incoming raid damage spots. Here's one that says, while during those 8 seconds you receive 20% increased healing from all sources, or reduce its cooldown by 30 seconds to just 1 minute. Green spells restore more health. Green spells are... There's the 5 different colors of dragon. There's red and blue, which are the 2 damage ones. There's bronze and green, which are the 2 healing ones, and there's black, which doesn't really have a talent tree for it. That would be the tank ones, but they didn't make tank Evoker. Fly with me protects you and your ally from harm, absorbing damage equal to 30% of your max HP for 5 seconds. A lot of shielding, but again, it's pretty clunky to get value out of, I think. And then down here we have Zephyr. 2-minute cooldown. Conjure an updraft to lift your party members within 25 yards into the air, reducing damage taken from area of effect attacks by 20% and increasing movement speed by 30% for 8 seconds. Worth noting this is party, not raid, but still pretty powerful. So that's the baseline Evoker tree. There's a lot of cool stuff in here for sure, and definitely a lot of situational stuff that I think you'll be able to switch between. So overall, a class tree that I'm pretty happy with so far. Definitely there's some mandatory points, I think, in it. Obviously, hard to imagine not taking the essence regen, the magic damage done increased, the living flame damage, those sorts of things seem like you'll basically always want to grab. But other than that, there's definitely a lot of optionality in here. Okay, Devastation tree. So the Devastation tree, you can basically think of it as the left side is the fire side, the red side, and the right side is the blue side, the blue dragonflight side. Generally, so far, it's felt like the red side has been the better one from what I've seen and from just reading the stuff myself, but we will go through it now. So at the top, we have Pyre, lob a ball of flame, dealing damage to a target and nearby enemies, and this is an essence spender, like Disintegrate, that beam was. Then over here we have Ruby Essence Burst. Your living flame has a chance to cause an essence burst, making your next Disintegrate, Pyre, or Charged Blast cost no essence. Whereas over here, Azure Essence Burst gives you the same thing, but on Azure Strike, which is the, so you basically have to decide whether you want Living Flame or Azure Strike, or both, I guess, to have a chance to give you these Essence Bursts. Volatility, Pyre has a 15% chance to flare up and explode again on a nearby target. Seemed like a pretty good point. Disintegrate, dealing more damage is here. Deep Breath's damage is increased over here. So again, these abilities have seemed less like DPS-y than these ones. So, but obviously if you want that, that's over there. Pyre's essence cost is reduced by 1, so you make it 2 instead of 3 essence. Pretty nice. And then down here we have Essence Burst stacks 2 times. Red spells deal more damage and healing. Blue spells deal more damage. And in the middle, Dragon Rage. Erupt with Draconic Fury. Exhale pyres at 3 enemies within 25 yards. For 14 seconds, Essence Burst's chance to occur is increased to 100%. So there's a DPS cooldown that you can talent into. Although it's actually not the most sick DPS cooldown, although it is kind of cool that it sends out 3 pyres instantly. I like that they've given it a DPS cooldown that actually does something when you press it. That's always something that I'm looking for in my DPS cooldowns. Then here we have a choice between Living Flame dealing more damage and healing, but having its cast time increased, or Living Flame putting a dot or a hot on targets, which I think is probably the nicer one generally. Empower spells reach maximum level in less time. Dragon Rage lasts longer. Empower spells increased your essence regen rate, lasting 2 seconds per empower level. And over here is a new empower spell you can take if you want, that is a single target one, but you can charge it up to 2 to damage 2 enemies, to 3 to damage 3 enemies. And yeah, it's also on a 30-second cooldown, so a pretty nifty effect, actually. All right, down here we have Firestorm. This is a 20-second cooldown AoE, like kind of a Flame Strike over 12 seconds. Or Blizzard or something over 12 seconds. Just does a lot of damage. Essence Burst has a chance to not be consumed. Your Empower spell's maximum level is increased by 1, so now you can take Fire Breath all the way up to 4 instead of just 3. What do we got here? Quell's cooldown is reduced by 20 seconds, so the 40-second interrupt can become a 20-second interrupt for DPS evokers. Maximum Essence increased to 6. Essence Surge critical strikes grant you Essence Burst. So that's the Eternity Surge. Yeah, Eternity Surge crits grant you Essence Burst, or Essence abilities reduce the cooldown of Eternity Surge. So again, this is the kind of that blue build over here. Charged Blast, a 18-second cooldown, 2 Essence instant cast that does damage, and Azure Strike increasing the damage of this by 100% stacking twice. So you want to Azure Strike twice before doing your Charge Blasts, is, I guess, the meme with that. Okay, I gotta put some more points in somewhere. So do that and that. Snap Fire. Living Flame has a chance to reset the cooldown of Firestorm, make your next one instant cast, deal 40% increased damage. Pyre reduces the remaining cooldown of Fire Breath by 2 seconds. Fire Breath deals more dot. I guess let's do this one. Azure Strike's damage is increased. Eternity Surge and Azure Strike hit twice as many targets, so Azure Strike could hit 4 targets instead of 2, and Eternity Surge could hit, well, if you've got this 4 Empower level thing, you could hit 8 targets with Eternity Surge. That's pretty cool. Charge Blast deals more damage, strikes 2 additional enemies, or Charge Blast has a 40% chance to instantly reset its own cooldown. So kind of some Arcane Mage vibes even over there. Then we get to the bottom here. Burnout. Fire Breath reduces the cast time of Living Flame for the next few seconds. Ruin. During Deep Breath and Dragon Rage, you gain the maximum benefit of Giant Killer of your mastery, regardless of the target's health. Disintegrate deal increases your damage done to the target by 5% for 4 seconds. Pyre and Living Flame extend the duration of your Fire Breath's dot on the target. Fire Breath and Eternity Surge reduce the remaining cooldown of your Deep Breath and Dragon Rage. And Disintegrate has a chance each time it deals damage to cast a level 1 Eternity Surge at your target. So yeah, you can see there's kind of like this is sort of the neutral stuff, and then all the stuff on the left side is the fire stuff, and all the stuff on the right side is the blue stuff. Okay, so with a build like this, you can get this kind of cool AoE setup if you go with all these things where you get to cast a bunch of damage. Let's see, just put some fire breath stuff in here. One more point somewhere. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really need any of this, so I'll just take the movement speed. Yeah, okay. So with a build like this, you have a lot of damage for AoE with the Firestorm, with your Fire Breath, with your Pyres that are doing AoE, with your cooldowns and stuff. So what it can look like is you can like put down your Firestorm, Dragon Rage, and do a Fire Breath, send it out at full power. I could have even made that instant cast, and then just blasting them with the Pyres. I don't have a damage meter here, but I assure you, I'm sure it's doing just unbelievable amounts of damage. You gotta proc on your next Firestorm, right? So I think this build, at least for M+, is the one I'd be the most excited about. Obviously, you have to position, like you see the way I'm positioning to make sure that I'm hitting targets with my Fire Breath. That would be something you would have to do, and with your tank, you know, make sure that they're staying in it if possible. But that can be done. You know, mages get catered to more than that, so can't be that bad. But yeah, that's the Evoker build that I'm most excited about. I haven't really messed around too much with the blue side yet, but that seems like the cool one for Devastation. That being said, I will try and do some of the blue stuff and do some dungeons as it as well. I haven't done any dungeons as either yet. I've just done PTR, training dummy hitting, which I have a lot of fun with. Let's go take a look at the preservation talents now. So the preservation side of the tree, instead of being about red and blue, is about either green or bronze dragonflight stuff. Here we have Echo, which wraps an ally with temporal energy, healing them and causing your next non-Echo healing spell to cast an additional time on that ally at 70% of normal healing. So it's kind of like a one-spell beacon when you cast this on somebody, right? It's like you heal them, it costs 2 essence, and then the next time you cast something other than Echo, it will also cast on them. So a pretty nifty effect. Dream Breath is just a frontal heal breath thing. The more you charge it, the less the cooldown is going to be, and the more it heals for. Reversion repairs an ally's injury, healing them over time, and when it crit heals, its duration is extended. So potentially a really strong scaler for a crit for preservation evokers is you just have your reversions, you know, extending themselves on targets. Temporal Compression. Each cast of a bronze spell causes your next Empower spell to reach maximum level in 5% less time, stacking up to 4 times. Essence Burst. Living Flame has a chance to make your next Essence ability free. Rewind. Rewind 50% of damage taken. So this is a 4-minute cooldown. Rewind 50% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds by all allies within 40 yards. Always heals for at least an amount. Healing increased by 100% when not in a raid. Love this. I love this effect. I wonder if the healing increased by 100% when not in a raid means it'll literally just always top your... Like if it just rewinds 100% of the damage, or if that's just for the always heals amount. I imagine it'll just be 100% of damage taken in a party. I like this. I really like making it so that anytime they do like a revival style cooldown, that it's better in 5-player groups, because usually they're kind of anemic at that level. So very potent effect though. Spirit Bloom, another Empower spell, heals an ally, and it splits to injured allies when it's empowered, so you can either have it heal 1 ally, or you can have it heal 2 or 3 if you charge it up. Lifegiver's Flame, Fire Breath heals a nearby injured ally for 80% of the damage done. Pretty cool way to let you do your Fire Breath for damage and get some healing out of it. Time Dilation, this is a 1-minute cooldown, instant active. Next 8 seconds, 50% of the damage the target would take is instead dealt over 8 seconds. So you give somebody a 50% stagger, basically, which is really big for tanks. I mean, it's not like a full... I mean, this will prevent one-shots in a huge way for tanks. Really big for helping them survive massive, massive hits. Of course, all the damage they take does still eventually need to get healed with this. It's not actually reducing any damage, but it is still, you know, staggers are really potent passive. So yeah. Down here we have Emerald Communion. a channeled 3-minute cooldown, restoring health and mana, and overhealing is transferred to a nearby injured ally, and you can cast it while stunned, feared, or silenced. Seems like this is going to be really nuts in PvP. In PvE, also, I mean, this is going to restore 10% of your mana bar while also lay on hands, like topping yourself and doing a bunch of free healing to other people as well. So that seems pretty good. Spirit Bloom's cooldown is reduced, or Spirit Bloom increases your essence regen rate. Fluttering Seedlings, Emerald Blossom, which is again that green circle thing that you get by default, sends out flying seedlings when it bursts, healing allies up to 30 yards away. Azure Strike has a chance to cause an essence burst, making your next essence ability free. So this is giving you something to do some value out of your out of doing some damage with your extra globals. Reversion instantly heals the target for 15% of damage taken in the last 5 seconds. Again, Reversion is the hot that you can put on people. Here we have Time Dilation's cooldown is reduced by 2 seconds every time you cast an Essence ability. Time Dilation, again, is that 1-minute cooldown stagger thing. Or Time Dilation delays 70% instead of 50% of damage. Temporal Anomaly, again, another active, so a lot of actives here on the top of the tree. 1.3 second cast, 5 second cooldown, although that's the green text there, that means it's haste scaling. Send forward a vortex of temporal energy, healing 3 injured allies within 15 yards every 1 second, and last 8 seconds, so you're sending out a time tornado. Here we have Emerald Communion increases your max HP by 20% for 15 seconds, so maybe you could even use it as a defensive, I guess, kind of there. You're able to move while communing with the dream is the other option here. Gain a chance for one of your fluttering seedlings to grow into a new Emerald Blossom. Living Flame and Fire Breath deal additional damage and healing equal to 1% of your max health. Echo replicates additional healing, so if you take this all the way up, then your Echo will do 100% normal healing instead of just 70%. Temporal Anomaly can be cast instantly instead of having a 1.3 second cast, versus heals 40% more in 40% less time, making it potentially a really quick way to top a lot of people. Lifebind is here. Rescue temporarily bonds your life with an ally, causing healing either of you receive to also heal the bonded partner for 40% of the amount. Again, Rescue is this ability from the Evoker tree to fly to an ally and heal them. So you can like do that and then link to somebody. Here's Call of Ysera. Rescue increases the healing of your next Dream Breath or your next Living Flame. And here is when you or an ally fall below 20% health, a version of yourself enters your timeline, heals them for an amount, and continues healing before returning to its own timeline once every 90 seconds. Really powerful passive here to come in and kind of like Mechanome Racial or Ancestral Guidance, right? Or Ancestral Guardian, but the Shaman one that heals you when you drop low. But it also triggers on allies having this happen. So it's nice value. It will probably trigger pretty frequently in raid, in progression. And sometimes it'll not be there when you actually want it to be there. It'll be some other time when you didn't need it as much, but still, it seems like a nice point to me. Consuming a full temporal compression grants you Essence Burst and lets you cast your next Essence ability for free. Every time you gain Essence Burst, your crit healing is increased. Dream Breath, Spirit Bloom, and Emerald Blossom cost less mana. You do still have mana as well as Essence to worry about. Your Empower spell's maximum level is increased by 1. Rewind's cooldown is reduced, or Rewind has charges, but its healing is reduced. Disintegrate generates mana over its duration, gives you a little bit of a way to actually make some mana, but again, Disintegrate does cost Essence, so you could, there's a trade-off there. Reversion has an extra charge. Again, Reversion is, where's that thing? That's this hot, so you get an extra hot of that. Allies healed by Dream Breath are healed for an additional 10% over 8 seconds. Your healing is increased by 5%. These are all 3-point notes as well, so 15% at 3 points on targets with your Reversion hot. Reversion, Time Dilation, and Echo last longer. And then here we have Dream Flight. Instant 1-minute cooldown, take in a deep breath, fly to the targeted location, healing all allies in your path instantly, and putting a hot on them. So it's basically deep breath, but a heal version instead of a damage version. Very cool. Stasis, 1.5 minute cooldown, causes your next 3 helpful spells to be duplicated and stored in a time lock. You may reactivate Stasis anytime within 30 seconds to quickly unleash their magic. So you press Stasis, and then it remembers the next 3 things you do, and then you press Stasis again, and it does them again. So obviously very good for setting up like a big healing ramp explosion thing. Seems like there will probably be some really powerful Stasis 1, 2, 3 stasis and then reactivate Stasis things to top raids during big damage. Cycle of Life. Emerald Blossom leaves behind a tiny sprout which gathers healing and then heals allies divided evenly after that. So kind of like a mini Cloudburst thing when you Emerald Blossom. Does seem pretty cool. So yeah, that is the Preservation Tree. I think it does look pretty nifty. It seems like there's a lot of effects in here that are kind of sweet, but I haven't played with it myself. And yeah, this videos, as always, you know, we like reading the talents and seeing what they do and having a little think about them. But you know, we'll have to see how it actually works out in dungeons. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you're excited about Evoker or not. And if you have any questions about how it works, if there's anything I explained badly, let me know. I'll try and do better, or try and reply in the comments as well. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.